Well, after many months, Colony is finally back, but not exactly in the way we anticipated. Hey guys, remember the season premiere of Colony, Season 2, Episode 1, 11.13. I was definitely very much looking forward to this episode. You guys know Colony was one of my biggest surprises of last year. I didn't expect much from it, and I got a much better character-driven show than I really thought was going to be. But I'm not going to lie, I didn't really remember what happened in Season 1. It's been a long time since the show was on. I think it was on back in like March or April. That was the last time the show was on. I really loved what we got last year. I just didn't really remember what was going on here. So I was kind of happy with the way this premiere turned out, because this premiere, while it was a premiere, it was more of a flashback episode, kind of a look into the life before the arrival. And I thought it was kind of cool the way they did that. You know, there definitely was a much needed, there were a lot of reveals in this episode. It was, I think we definitely did need this, but let's just get into it, because I definitely do want to get into this episode overall. It was definitely different than what we've seen with the show so far, but definitely to provide a lot of really great reveals. So we start off, and immediately they do everything to tell you that this is the past, because we see all of Will and Katie's kids, including Charlie, are home, and Will's still with the FBI. He's been distant for days, though, and he tells Katie that he's having problems with his partner, Devin, because she thinks that he's a dirty cop, and Katie promises that they'll figure it out. Devin shows up at the door, and she and Will head out to work, and that was the day of the arrival, we find out. 11.13 was the day that they arrived, and Will and Devin end up talking about their lives in the diner, and he flat out asks her how she got the money to buy her new place in Santa Monica. And remember, she thinks that he's a dirty cop, and you're really not making yourself less dirty by literally asking her how she got this money, but whatever, you know, I'm not going to judge. He knows how much they made, and so he knows she can't afford it, and she says she's a rich uncle, but he doesn't believe her, and then he tells her that he requested a transfer, and she gets really defensive and says that there's no way that she's not dirty, and Will and Devin there's no way she's dirty, I mean, so Will and Devin get called in. 7 VIPs went missing in the LA areas overnight, and they need to find them and bring them home. So Will and Devin have to work together, and they start searching for one of the missing people, and they're super chilly to each other, and Will says that he's doing her a favor by not ratting her out, but she's pissed. They show up at a house and notice a bullet hole in the door, so they break in. They find this dead woman on the floor, and they find a security camera, though, and start talking to whoever's watching on the other side, and it turns out the missing VIP that they were looking for has actually been hiding in a panic room this entire time, which I thought that was quite interesting. We saw that, and the VIP, who's an engineer, explains that they found his housekeeper first, and he hid in his panic room until they left. So what kind of engineer needs a panic room? He says he's on a list about 1,200 people. So in an event of a catastrophe, they all get sequestered. If society ends, they're the ones who reboot it. So they did do a pretty good job with showing Will's last case and things like that. It is definitely the least interesting aspect of this entire episode, but that's mainly because everything else is just so much more interesting. Not that this wasn't, but I just found everything else to be a lot more interesting than seeing Will's last police case. When it comes to Katie, Broussard, and Snyder, though, their stuff is ostensibly so much more interesting. We see Katie drives Charlie somewhere, but their maps stop working and they hit traffic, and Broussard also returns home to his mom's place after what seems like a while. It was an unplanned trip, and he sees the aide that he hired and asks how his mom is, and she takes him to see her, and she's really sick, and it's clear how much they actually care about each other, though. Pictures of him in his military uniform are on the walls, and I like that they reminded us, you know, that Broussard was in fact in the military, because it's something that they definitely did show very well last year, is getting us to really sympathize with Broussard and show why he does what he does. And I like seeing Broussard before the Red Hat and before he was assigned to that job. And after she drops Charlie off, Katie opens the bar. Broussard comes in, but the TV isn't working. And I thought this was interesting. We saw how these two got to know each other, because definitely they had to have known each other, I mean, before. I mean, she had joined, you know, the Red Hats and things like that way before she, you know, way before the, definitely way before, you know, where we were in the beginning of the show. So they know each other already, and he explains that he's home and making some life changes, and he asks why she owns the Yonk, and she says she needs purpose because her mom was a mother and a wife, but she wanted her kids to see her as more than that. So this kind of shows why she kind of has the position that she has. It's because she doesn't just want to be that stereotypical housewife. She actually wants to do something that her kids can remember her for. And I thought that whole aspect of the episode was really interesting. They really did a good job with showing why Katie would choose this line of work. And He tells her he signed up for the military when he was 19, expecting that he'd bring justice to a place that needed it, and he did his tours, and then the private sector came calling, but he never really found any answers, and Broussard then gets an urgent call, and he leaves, but he leaves Katie an address and tells her that if she needs anything to look him up. So now we know how Katie and Broussard got to know each other and started working here. And I thought that was a really well done scene. Just that little detail right there, I really did enjoy seeing. I thought overall all that stuff was definitely very interesting when we saw that. So Will goes back to the office with the VIP. The office is in complete chaos and all these people are missing. Will knows something's wrong, so he calls Katie and tells her to pick up the kids and meet him at the bar. And something's happening, so Katie starts picking up the kids. She calls Maddie, tells her to meet them. She's upset because her husband's on a plane and they all think they're under some kind of attack, but she says she'll meet them. And what's good about the scene is that we know what's going on. We know what's happening in the scene. We know what's about to happen. But the way they set it up, I still thought was pretty intense because, we definitely have this doubt of, what's really about to happen. What's really gonna, is this really gonna be the arrival? Is this really gonna be what's gonna happen here? I thought it was very well done the way they set that up. So, back at the office, Devin says they need to get out. Will doesn't want to abandon their work, but she leaves him, and suddenly while Katie's driving with Gracie and while Will's working, there are some weird noises and quakes, and all the cars stop working, so they know that something strange is happening. And again, they did a very good job of setting up that the arrival is going down. I definitely really did like the way that was done here. So Katie and Gracie know that something's going on, so they go on foot to Bram's school to get him. The power's out, but they know it's something bigger than that, so they luckily are able to get him out of the school. He didn't know, why they were to get him out, and I thought it was kind of annoying that Bram's like, oh, it's a power outage. I mean, that there's definitely something more going down. You'd think that they would call school out for something like that. I remember back in, 8th grade when we had a power outage in my school, we got out early. Why didn't they just call for him to get out early? It just seems like that would have made more sense, but again, I don't run the school, so I can't really, say, but it just seems like it's kind of a no-brainer where you should probably, school should probably not happen if, the power goes out. It just seems like, that's what you should do. But the next step, of course, is to get Charlie. And he's 2 miles away, and the cars aren't working, but they'll figure it out. But Gracie's terrified. She starts crying. Very well done scene. I really do like the actress who plays Gracie. She honestly is a very good child actress, and I thought she did a really good job in this scene. She's crying, so Kay decides to bring them to the bar to meet Will first, and Will comes to the bar. He meets Katie, Gracie, and Bram, but Maddie's still not there. Maddie's not really a character in this episode. She's kind of just there. I didn't really feel like Maddie had much to do, but since everything lost power, Maddie's husband Flights is probably in trouble, and Katie also couldn't get to Charlie, so Will says he'll use a bike to get Charlie, and meanwhile, Broussard goes back home. He starts stocking up on all his weapons, and later he and a bunch of military guys are told to go to a house. Broussard realizes it's a trap, and they'll need to get out, and his friend says that anyone who wants to attack them will have a word of pain waiting for them. But Broussard leaves, and as he walks down the street, there are all these explosions, and the house is completely destroyed. So that was pretty crazy the way that went down. We don't know how this happened, but his house is destroyed, and Katie and the kids hide in the bar while they listen to all these explosions. Suddenly, someone's knocking frantically at the door, and it's Maddie and her son. Obviously, they need a place to stay, so they let them stay there, do what they need to do. Katie lets her in and sees the chaos, and people are running and screaming, and there are droids literally everywhere, and Broussard then goes home. His mom goes into cardiac arrest from the shock of the attack. He tries to revive her, but he just can't. It's clear that she's gone. There's no way that he's going to save her, and it's a really sad scene. I think they did a really good job of showing, who Broussard really was at this point. He wasn't just some horrible guy. He had a very complicated life, and I think he kind of just did this because he didn't really have much of a family after this. I mean, his entire house was destroyed. He lost his mother. This was a very saddening time for Broussard, but you also get the fact that he really doesn't have anyone to really worry about. Like, him doing this job, he's not Katie where, she has a wife, she has, a husband and kids. He doesn't really have that. He just kind of is on his own, and it's sad to see, definitely, but Broussard goes home, and at the same time, we see Will's outside when he sees the walls of the block somehow form around him. He's trapped, and it's too late. He can't get to Charlie, and I think they did this scene perfectly, honestly. I mean, this could have easily been very contrived and very silly, but no, I think this was done pretty well. We know that obviously there's going to be a way he can't get to Charlie, and the way they did that, just seeing the look on Will's face. The actor who plays Will, I can't think of his name right now, but he did a really great job in portraying Josh Hartnett. There you go. Not Josh Hartnett, that's from Benny Dreadful. Josh Holloway, I think his name is, something like that. he did a really great job of really showing the fear in Will's eyes, just the despair he has of him not being able to get his son back. It's a very sad moment overall. However, that's not all that happens because we still have to talk about Snyder and his whole arc. Now, Snyder's arc, I think, is potentially the most interesting one by far because this is really the episode where we see how Snyder got his position. Something they did very well in the second half of the last season is they took Snyder from being a very contrived villain who's just, powerful and demanding and very intimidating, and making him a lot more of a sympathetic character, and they continue to do that very well here. Because at this point, he's not the proxy, he's still working at the provost of Stanford. He shows up to work to find two agents from the Institute of Global Advancement in his office. Their clients, who are the hosts, have an algorithm that chooses him for a new job. We, of course, know that's going to be, the proxy governor. They know everything about his life, including the fact he's been stealing money from the university, and they can tell him he can change his future if he says yes to meeting their clients. So it's kind of how we set up what happened with Will, with what he's doing. It very much reminded me of the first episode of the show. They give him this chance to do that. So the agents take, they know he's been doing all these things, but they're giving him this chance. I thought that was kind of cool. So the agents take Snyder to some remote location. He sees the host for the first time, and it's the moment we've all been waiting for. We see now Snyder has to make a choice. Should he take the job? Of course, we know he will. First, though, he goes to see his ex-wife and daughter, who we already know he doesn't really have a great relationship with his daughter. And he barges in, tells his ex-wife to leave LA, says he needs to take their daughter away. They've had an ugly split, and Snyder just barged in, making no sense. She has no idea what the hell he's talking about. So obviously they don't react very well. Snyder won't really explain what's happening, but he says he can only take one person. The host can only sequester so many people, so he has the agents take his daughter and leaves his ex-wife behind. So now we know why his daughter hates him so much, because she can't ever see her mom. That's really why, his daughter has such animosity for him. It's because of the fact that, he made this choice where she can't see her mom, and that's something, obviously, that his daughter really wants to do. So he then later meets the Helena, who tells him it's their job to make sure that the transition goes as smoothly as possible. It's a brave new world, and he's about to be the most powerful man in Hollywood, she says, and then he and some other chosen people go into hiding, and once again, this was something that we didn't necessarily need, but it was just a really good way of showing us how Snyder turned out the way he did, how he got into that position. I thought that was very well done overall. Even I think it's one of the most interesting parts of the episode, the way they really get you sympathize with all these characters. That's something I think Colony does very well, and especially when it comes to Snyder. Just really great stuff from him. I love the way they showed how he went from this, one man who had a small position of power to becoming the proxy. It was really well done the way they did that. I definitely really enjoyed it, and I think it definitely did add to the overall emotional aspect. So now that we've seen all we really need to see in the past, we finally flash forward to the present, where we actually see that Will did in fact make it to the Santa Monica block. As we know, we left off last season with Snyder giving him that key, and he actually does make it there. He asks people about Charlie, and they, talk about how Charlie works with some guy named Solomon, but they attack him and beat him up, and we, of course, know that the guys that Charlie are working for are not at all good, so I definitely mentioned seeing where that's going to go. So Katie, meanwhile, goes to visit Bram, who's now in prison because of what he did, and Maddie pulled some strings so Katie could see him, but she can't get Bram out, and Will can't help because he's in Santa Monica. So she's kind of now in this situation where she doesn't really know what to do. We also know she's constantly under surveillance, so there's definitely something going on there. Will then tries to break into a house, but someone threatens him with a gun, and we see it's actually Devin. So this is kind of why we saw the flashbacks, and he tells her that he needs her help, but the question is she really going to help him? And that is the way this episode really ends. Really great stuff overall, but let's just get in this episode and talk about where we're going to go from here. Now, because of the fact that this episode was a flashback episode, there really isn't a ton to talk about in where I think we're going to go with the rest of the story. I mean, there definitely is stuff that happened, but we didn't see anything with Snyder in the present. We didn't see any Broussard in the present. We saw Katie and we saw Will, our two central characters, but we didn't get to see, what else is going to go down. I am definitely interested in where we're going to go with Will's storyline, because if we're heading the direction I genuinely think Will's going to be reunited with Charlie. I don't know that's going to lead him back to his family. I do think that's definitely going to come with a price, but I do think that he is going to get, back with Charlie, because he already knows about the guys that he's working for and things like that, so he's very close to finding Charlie. I think that definitely is going to happen this season, but that we need to see more of Charlie first before we really do dive into that, because that's going to be very interesting. I loved that little scene we got with Charlie in the season finale, and I'm looking forward to seeing where that's going to go. The other big question is Bram. We now know that Bram is in prison, and Katie can't really help him. Maddie can't help him either. Maddie's got her own job to attend to, so Katie really is the only one who can really save Bram, and I don't know how that's really going to work, if she's going to be able to save him. That's going to be interesting. But let's talk about Devin, because, yes, the main point of this episode, the reason we got the flashbacks, was because of Devin, and yes, it was my least favorite aspect of the episode. I just thought it wasn't that interesting, but I like this. I love that now, I kind of knew that we were going to see Devin because of Santa Monica, but I like this. I like that Devin has come back in the story. I like seeing these two come back together. It's been a while since, she's really worked with Will before. They haven't worked together since the arrival. So I'm interested in seeing if she really is going to help him. Is she really willing to, help him and things like that? That's something I'm definitely interested in seeing, is where we're really going to go with Devin. Does she still think that he's a dirty cop? And how will she react when she finds out the organization that Will's currently in? That's something I'm also very interested in exploring. Nothing really about the surveillance or things like that, or what's going on there. And like I said, not a ton of Broussard or Snyder. All the stuff we saw of them were in flashbacks, but I do have to say, I really did enjoy seeing the flashbacks here. I like seeing especially Snyder before he was Proxy, and Broussard before he was, with the Red Hats. I thought they did a very good job of showing why these characters made these decisions. You got the sense of Broussard kind of didn't have much of a purpose in his life, so he kind of just did this because, he needed some kind of work, and there really wasn't anything else he could do. Also, they really did a good job of showing why Katie would work with Broussard, because she wanted something to be remembered for. She wanted her kids to know her as not just their mother, but as something more powerful than that. However, the one thing she's doing is probably the worst possible thing she could do, but she's doing it for her family, and I really do love that. It adds this whole angle to Katie's character that I really do love. Katie's always been one of the best parts of the show, and I love what they've done with her. Snyder as well, I thought they did a very good job, maybe out of everyone, of showing why Snyder really did make that choice to, become Proxy, and why his daughter hates him so much. All that stuff was very well told here. I thought all the reveals were very well done. My only complaint with this episode is I didn't really feel was all that necessary, honestly. I felt that these were definitely really well done reveals, but this felt more to me, and I don't know if I'm the only person that thought this, but to me this felt more like an episode that would be placed as a penultimate episode, or an episode at the end of a season, not a season premiere. It did feel quite strange that we started the season premiere with a flashback episode. I get it. The point was so we could introduce Devin into the story and see if she's going to help Will. I understand that. I just didn't know if, the Broussard stuff and Snyder, as good as it was, I don't really know if it was necessary. And, as I said, the Will and Devin plot, the main plot, really was not that interesting to me. It was Will and Devin working on this case is completely irrelevant to the rest of the episode. That whole thing I kind of got bored by. I really was not that into what was going on there. And the episode definitely did take a while to get going. I think once we got to once Kate and Broussard met up and things like that, that's when the episode really took off for me. I really did like where we got there. I thought the ending definitely was pretty good. Maddie was not really a character in this episode. She was just kind of there. Maddie was just a character, was not really involved here, and she's like the third main character in the show. So I was kind of upset because I like Maddie's storyline. I'm interested in seeing where her line of work is going to go, how she's going to work for this boss. I mean, there's a lot of interesting stuff they could have done with her, but they didn't really show anything. They definitely allude to the fact that Maddie had a husband who never returned and things like that, and she was very worried about him, but they didn't really go anywhere with it. They kind of just showed her, and that was kind of it, and I really do like Maddie as a character, and I hope that we see more of her this season. I'm sure we will, but this episode, she just really wasn't there, and I definitely did enjoy this episode. I thought this was definitely a very well done kind of break from what was really going on. Definitely get the sense the season's going to be insane. There's going to be a lot going on here, and I definitely think it's going to be a lot more action-packed. And the way we're setting things up, this definitely has potential, I think, to be a little bit better than Season 1. Season 1 was good, but there's not as much to reveal. There's not as much the characters are hiding from each other. The characters know what they're doing, and with that awareness, I think it's really going to propel the story forward, and I'm interested in seeing really where that's all going to go. There's a lot of potential for this season. I'm really hoping that they really do utilize all the things that can make the season great. But overall, guys, I am going to give the Season 2 premiere of Colony, Season 2, Episode 1, 11/13, a 4 out of 5 or a B+. Over, guys, remember the season premiere of Colony. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode overall. Did you like the flashbacks? Did you understand the point of them. Where do you think the whole thing with Devin's gonna go? Did you like what they do with Broussard and Snyder and characters like that? But that's my review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Definitely looking forward to the rest of the season. And I will see you guys next week, which will be for the season possible series finale of Sherlock. And I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.